Yo, what up? It's Eric, aka CDEFGABC, aka Major Key.
Yo, what up? It's Jeff, aka Morphine Power Ranger, aka Methadone Data.
Was this rehearsed?
No, we just do this.
Okay. Hi.
You gotta say who you are.
Oh, hi. A-Trak. What's up?
This is a waste of time with It's the Real.
That too.
Yeah. What's happening?
Hey.
How's it going?
Going good. Going grand. Going great.
Good. How's business?
Stupendous. Everything's tremendous.
Oh, Jeff, how's business?
Booming.
Booming.
Wait, there
That
was
kid's a millionaire, I think.
He is.
Yeah. I mean, he's obviously booming.
Yeah.
Like, but there was a snap the other day where Ben was asked, like, how's business? And he goes, booming. And then Khaled turns and goes, yo, Chris, there's another guy. He goes, yo, Chris, how's business? He also says booming.
Yeah.
And Ben goes, dude, come on.
Make up your own.
Yeah.
Jeff was really concerned, actually, when, and we're talking about Benjamin Kicks, who is Khaled's shoe dealer. During, like, Christmas break, he took that bus trip from Miami
To Vegas.
Yes. And Jeff was concerned. It was like, well, it is Christmas break, so it's all right. Now, I feel like it's school year again, and he's hanging with him in L.A.
Is he playing hooky?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think that Ben has parents. I think he's like a little scamp who just, like, he's like an orphan child.
Maybe he's a Milanakis kind of guy, and he's actually 42.
Oh, whoa.
Maybe.
I really never put that together, but that might be the case.
Maybe.
I'm going to start writing some fan fiction about Ben.
Let's see. We've known A-Trak for a while.
Yes.
I've known you for even longer than Jeff has, because I met you back in 2005.
Kanye days, right?
The Kanye days.
John Monopoly Connect.
That whole thing.
I mean, should we explain who Kanye is? Kanye
Yeah, sure.
West?
Yeah, there was that whole week there where, I mean, I got to know Don C and John Monopoly, and there were times when John would, like, change jobs, like, without telling anybody.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Kanye's original management team... Well, actually, around the first album, he had, like, 3 management teams. But the Chicago core of it was a crew called Hustle, which was mainly John Monopoly and Don C. Don C's still around. People know him as Just Don. When I met him, he was really my point person for all my work with Kanye. He was essentially tour manager.
He was also your predecessor behind the wheels.
DJ Offbeat
That's
was
right,
his DJ
yeah.
name. John Monopoly was a Chicago, more sort of club promoter figure. And so, yeah, you guys were doing some video work, I think?
Well, just Eric.
Yeah, me.
Okay.
He, I graduated college and thought I was going to be a feature film writer and director, and life is not a straight path,
Yes.
And, I knew of Kanye and knew that he had, like, other sort of ventures, including Hustle Film, that he was involved with.
Right.
And so I was like, well, let me get in where I fit in, and I love hip hop, I love film, let me, like, try to be a part of this world.
Yeah.
And they showed a lot of interest, and it got to the point where, like, they talked about, like, documentaries about, like, John Monopoly's family, because they were in, like, the Johnson body...
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, products,
right.
Yeah.
Right,
And,
his name is Johnson.
Yeah. And,
John Johnson.
And so they wanted me to do documentaries for that and this and write scripts and do other things. And at a certain point, yeah, John would switch jobs. He'd be at Violator. He'd be at one of the record companies, which I forget, where he signed Dirtbag to.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I remember that he was at Violator before.
Yeah,
Because I would just ask him questions about... I'd just be like, hey, talk to me about Mobb Deep. Like,
Yeah.
Tell me a Havoc story.
And then, like, one day, it was just like, well, his email's bouncing back. And so I was just like, let me track him down somehow. And I did.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, and he hit me on text and is like, I'm staying at the W Hotel. And I was like, cool, I'll be there. And then I'm like, wait, which W Hotel?
There's 3. Yeah.
And so I showed up and I saw Consequence, like, downstairs, and I was like, yo, because I had met him originally down in Asbury Park at some show.
Right,
Oh,
and he
okay.
conned you into buying, like,
Two mixtapes. Yeah. He was like, I'll introduce you to Don C if you buy 2 of my mixtapes.
For the measly sum.
Yeah. Which,
I will gladly pay Tuesday for a hamburger today.
take him to the cleaners.
he took you to the cleaners.
I know.
Yeah.
And I have that. And so, anyway, so I saw him downstairs, and then he's like, all right, like, come on upstairs to whatever suite there was. And up there were GLC,
Leonard.
you, yep,
Yeah, I was there.
and Consequence, and John Monopoly was, like, sitting on the bed or whatever.
Cool.
And I came in and caught up or whatever, and he was like, this is A-Trak. And I thought he said 8-track. And
Not an uncommon
sure.
mix-up.
And then later on, when they hired me to document Kanye behind the scenes during that whole Grammy run,
Yeah.
which was like at the start of it was the label launch party for Good Music here in New York, and there were rehearsals and everything with some John Legend stuff.
Yeah.
And then the whole week in LA, I reconnected with you, and you were just like, hey, what's going on? And then, we sort of saw each other in LA a little bit, and then we didn't, Jeff didn't know you, but I didn't see you until much later on when we were more certified as It's The Real.
It's The Real.
And then we finally had you on an old podcast called Hype Men.
Yeah, which was also here, right?
Which is also
Yes.
here,
I remember this living room.
And then we've since had your brother on.
Yeah.
On A Waste of Time.
Yeah, recently, right?
Recently.
Yeah, you've had Nick a bunch of times, I think.
And Nick a bunch of times, sure.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's about time you come back.
I'm here.
And yeah.
I'm here to reclaim.
Now, when we had your brother on,
Yeah.
he told us a few amazing things.
Yeah.
One of which was his phone number back at home. Do you remember what it was?
In Montreal?
In Montreal.
Oh, wait. He had 576 days. Yeah.
A custom phone number,
Yeah.
like Sir Mix-a-Lot.
Yeah. Yeah. He
Did
did. I
you-
forgot that. That's cool. I have a good memory for numbers, but you had to prompt me. I do remember that. Yeah.
Would you ever did you ever think of having one of your own?
No. I'm more like, I just like numbers that have a good sort of ring to them, no pun intended. Like that sound cool or that look like a cool sequence. It didn't have to be a word.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was funny.
I hope there's some
Yeah, somebody whose name is not Dave now has it.
Yeah.
that people
It's
can call.
Yeah, I wonder if there's like when Kramer has the phone number that's almost movie phone.
Yeah, yeah,
Why
yeah.
don't you tell me which Dave you're trying to call?
So if anyone wants to look for Dave, it's 514-576-DAVE.
That was him. That was him in Montreal.
The
days.
other really cool thing that he told us that we had no idea was that you were friendly with Juicy J going back to the Kanye days.
Yeah, definitely. I think I posted a Throwback Thursdays photo of that recently. Yeah, I met Juicy J at the Mix Show Power Summit when I went there with Ye. And we stayed friendly for a long time. Juicy J is one of those guys, kind of like Bun B, like he'll remember a face for years.
Yeah.
You might not see him for 3-4 years. And I remember I saw him at an airport way after I stopped working with Ye. And he's like, "What's up, A-Trak?" What's up, Juicy J? And I was already a fan of his. Actually, we were there with John Monopoly at the Mix Show Power Summit. And I used to amuse Manop by knowing Sipping on Some Scissor by heart. He would have me, with my French-Canadian accent, recite Sipping on Some Scissor. So when we saw Juicy J, he's like, "I want you to meet my friend A-Trak." I was like, "Please don't make me rap. Please don't make me rap. Not in front of Juicy J."
Did you
You know that we're going to make you rap it now.
That's right.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, you don't want that.
Did you have anything to do with the Side to Side remix, or were you there for that?
I was there. I remember. Yeah, I really remember that. I had a peripheral influence in the sense that, so in those years of the Kanye tours, I'm talking about like 2005 and 6 or so, I was working with GLC a lot, kind of producing his project, and obviously working with Kanye closely, mainly. But GL and I used to listen to a lot of 3-6, and when that album came out, Stay Fly was such an anthem, and that made that whole album, The Most Known Unknowns, an anthem. That was, that album just sort of solidified their legendary status in a sense.
Yeah.
And so, I think Kanye really was genuinely a fan of 3-6 for a long time, but maybe the fact that a couple of us were listening to that record so actively around him, when they asked Ye to jump on the remix, that made it even more like, oh yeah, I have a mental picture of the studio where that verse was recorded. We were either in Australia or New Zealand, and Ye had to find a studio to do his verse, and it was a pretty lo-fi studio. I remember that their Pro Tools was still running on a computer that had OS 9. I hadn't seen OS 9 in a long time. It was a really old version of Pro Tools on OS 9, and I was like, yo, this is trippy. Like, this is really weird.
Trippy because of Juicy J.
Everything's
Yeah.
trippy.
Right.
I probably still have the Trippy app on my phone. Let me check. Hold up. I might have
Wait,
some
what is
sound
the
effects.
Trippy app?
I'll show you right now. Wait, Trippy, man.
Real quick, Jeff, you should mention why we have bagels here.
Oh, because we're Jewish.
Obvious.
Yeah. No, because we had Dave on the podcast, your brother, and he mentioned how he does not fuck with New York bagels.
Yes.
And we were like, because, he lived on the Upper West Side when he went to Columbia and all
did.
that. And
I
we were like,
actually lived there too.
Yeah.
Did I delete the Trippy app? That's
Wow, big mistake.
Blasphemy.
Yeah.
It was this soundbite app where you could just go, Scrippers! Like, play me some Pimpin' Man. It was fun.
Your brother doesn't like New York bagels. These are from Absolute Bagels, which are on like 107th.
Yeah,
that,
not
yeah.
only doesn't, I mean, he and I I'll have his back on this one. We don't acknowledge nor respect New Yorker bagels.
Wow.
I
It
mean,
was
I acknowledge
really
it as a
good
thing
seeing
that
you.
makes me really bloated. I can't.
You're saying that in front of the bagels.
Yeah. And what? Yeah. The Montreal versus New York bagel rivalry is a much fabled and very true rivalry.
Well, listen,
Wait, so what's the difference? It's that you guys use like honey or something in them?
Okay, so there's a few things from what I understand. And the funny thing is in Montreal, there's really just officially, there's like 2 main bagel shops that are really respected, accredited. People do like a pilgrimage to get bagels there.
It is,
and they're 1 block away from each other, Saint Viateur Bagels and Fairmount Bagels. The 2 founders were originally partners, and they had a feud. They split. They essentially make the same bagel. I can't really taste the difference.
Yeah.
It's literally 5 blocks from where my parents and from where I grew up with my parents, and it's a different kind of brick oven. The bagels are lighter. They're boiled in a sort of sweet water first, and then they're put in the oven. And there's something about the water and that whole process that makes them a lot lighter. There actually is a hole in the center of the bagel, whereas the New York bagel, I believe, has more of a belly button situation. You can see through the Montreal one.
Are you also like the guy who likes Tim Hortons and doesn't fuck with Dunkin' Donuts?
Nah.
Okay, so it's not
Tim
like...
Hortons isn't that good.
Also,
It's
for the
cool
record,
to say it's good, but it's not that good.
wouldn't you say that you're more of a New Yorker now at this point?
Well, now you live in L.A.
Well, no, but certainly more than
Yeah.
L.A. Like I feel like you're such a part of the city.
I appreciate that. I mean, it's both. I lived in Montreal. Sorry, till I was 24.
Officially.
Yeah.
Do you have your driver's license?
Yeah. Yes. And then I moved to New York. I lived 8 years in New York, so I lived longer in Montreal. I got my driver's license when I was like 16 in Montreal. Had it for a long time. I never actually owned a car until I moved to LA a year ago. Really didn't drive much until I went to LA.
I guess you have to have a car in LA, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're
I mean, I
Ubering
feel like I
everywhere.
would Uber everywhere.
Uber everywhere.
Yeah.
Do you use Uber a lot out in LA?
A bit, but I mean, the first month that I lived there, I really did Uber everywhere, and then I realized it was a little ridiculous, and then I got a car.
Was that just because you were going to like Malibu?
Yeah,
those,
that's
like,
the thing is,
45-minute.
A little,
treks?
like, sort of, like, as a, just... I'm in LA mainly to record, so I'm bouncing around.
I go to
studio
LA to
sessions.
network, I'm just
Exactly.
there to pass
make
out
it.
business cards. Yeah.
But I'm bouncing.
Headshots.
Yeah, I'm bouncing around studios that are in different parts of town, so it got a little crazy.
We had Sycamore on the podcast.
Oh, cool.
And
Sick.
Yeah. And he said that, and he's, New York born and bred, but has
Yeah.
lived out in LA for a while.
Yes.
And he said that LA has become really a place where starving artists can live and make a career for themselves. And in New York, you can't anymore because it's become a billionaire city. So people have been priced out, and he feels like the creativity has gone to the West Coast as well.
Yeah,
Do you find that to be the case?
I definitely agree that it's cheaper to live in LA than in New York.
Bam, 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 bam.
Yeah. I just also think that I do think that there's been a sort of mass migration of the creativity. I still think New York is cooler. New York will always be cooler, but specifically studio sessions, there's like barely any studios in New York. There's a couple in Brooklyn now, which is cool. And obviously nowadays you don't necessarily have to go to a physical studio to make music as much anymore. But like, there's the whole community of recording is in LA, and songwriters and publishers and this and that. And there's a lot of producers also in the electronic scene where I'm heavily involved too. That's become the hub of it for North America. So the recording in LA is just easier. For my own work, basically, I make music in LA pretty much all the time. That's what drew me to move there. And if I want to work on hip hop stuff, I go to Atlanta for a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta is one giant hip hop studio.
And then you come here to just vacation?
Then I come here to get the downloads on, everything else. And take care of Fool's Gold business and do a few meetings. When I'm in New York, I have these crazy days where I have like 8 things in my iCal on any given day, which is not even possible. That's part of why I'm able to make more music in LA, is it's not possible to do 8 things in LA because you got to drive everywhere and there's traffic and all this stuff. So you do 3 things, you know,
and
including
then you just
like
tell
the
people
gym or
that you're
something.
like, you know, stuck in traffic and you can't make it.
No, and then one of those things is the studio. You're there for like 8 hours or something. You get music done, and at the end of the day, you feel pretty good. In New York, I'm just bouncing around the city all day, taking care of stuff, which is great. I need to do it, but I realize I don't need to do it more than a few days out of the month.
Well, when it came to recording in New York, where was your home base?
I would just make music out of my spot, but I haven't made music in New York in years. I was already going to LA to make music for the last couple of years, even before I moved there. I'm pretty much unable to make music in New York, but you know, I can practice my DJing and do meetings and take care of things. But yeah, in LA, there's a more sort of stable mindset where I can block things out of my head and just be creative.
Do you know how many air miles you have right now?
I have air miles with the 3 main
Airlines?
groups.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, Star Alliance, which is United, Air Canada, and others. Lufthansa. You know, One World is American and Friends. SkyTeam is Delta and Co. And it varies. Yeah, I mean, I use them sometimes. Like I'll get my mom flights and stuff like that.
Have you ever been in the cockpit?
No, actually, I haven't.
Is that what you're going to do on the flight back to LA?
No, I'm not interested in that. United has this status above Gold and 1K called why am I blanking? For American, it's called Concierge Key. For United, I am blanking right now. There's a special status that's really high up, and the only person that I knew that had that was Just Blaze. And then I had it for 1 year, which was 2 years ago. I'm really mad that they took me off of it after a while. But as soon as I found out I had that status, I called Just, and I was like, yo, let's talk about it. Like, what do they really do? And he's like, yo, kid, they held a plane for me once. And, you know, so.
That's awesome.
InfiniteLegroom.com is the travel website that I own.
You, just like us, have not seen... We had not seen Star Wars. We now have.
Okay.
Just Blaze was on the podcast. We had him on here to talk about it. Yeah. And we went over to Just's house to watch it.
Yeah.
And it was like watching it within Star Wars.
yeah.
Because like his dogs are all like, they look like Ewoks. I don't know if that means anything to you, but like his they had like all these cupcakes that were
decorated for it. It was like a big thing. We're like, is all this stuff like normally out? And you know, so they showed us the first 2, and we're like, all right, fine.
So wait, have you seen even the early Star Wars?
So we saw the first 2 at his place.
Okay.
And then our agent found out and got mad that we had never seen Star Wars, and so they sent us the next like the 3 that we hadn't seen.
The 4 that we hadn't.
4 that we hadn't seen,
which was 6, 1, 2, and 3. Right.
Right.
So like the original 2.
So the first ones were 4, 5, 6. Basically.
Yeah.
No,
shout out to Cool G-Rap, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I don't even remember which ones I've seen. I know I've seen parts of some of the early ones, but it didn't really strike me like in my memory. I don't remember if I've seen Empire Strikes Back or whatever else.
Our whole thing was like, we've seen Spaceballs. Like,
so like we're good. Yeah.
Yeah. Once you've gone to Mel Brooks, you can't really go anywhere else. I know I saw one of the ones that came out, 10 or 15 years ago.
As a joke?
I don't know. I forget. I was traveling or something. One of the ones with Natalie Portman, I saw it. I was like, this isn't very good.
Yeah.
See, we haven't even seen that one, so I don't even know.
It's not good.
We have them here. We're just
I'm sure the classic ones are good. I have enough little segments of memories of the early ones that I could appreciate. I have a great appreciation for art that's for like ages 6 to 66 kind of thing. Like I put. You
love board games.
Yes, no, but I'll put The Simpsons and The Beatles and and any Pixar movie in this sort of catch-all category of like, art that works for anybody. That, for me, kids have to appreciate something, but then there has to be like some higher references in there too. And I understand that the classic, like the better Star Wars movie, have that quality of, especially like. There's even sides of those original ones, the sound design being done on Moogs and stuff like that I appreciate. It just was never my thing, so I literally have no interest in seeing the new one. I'm not anti it. if you sat me down and put it in front of me and like gave me a plate of almonds, I'll probably watch it, and I'm sure I'll enjoy it. But I have no urge to go out and watch it.
So that's where we were, and
then Phil Chang got us tickets to go see the new one.
Well, and my thing was like I have no emotional attachment to it whatsoever. I think like if you watch it as a kid and you take something away from it, you're going to later on just be really waiting for this movie.
Yes.
For me, I walked in there and I was like, all right. Like it's fine. Like it wasn't mind blowing, and it didn't strike me as something that I've been missing this for my whole life.
Yeah,
you enjoyed it.
Yeah, that was good. I will say so. They had like dedicated popcorn, like special popcorn for this stuff, and
special
it was like
cloth alert.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
it was major key, very hard to swallow. But what's it called? Like you got the light side, and I got the dark side.
Yeah, they
type
had like
chocolate because it was like
combinations that were like these are the light side and these are the dark side, and so we were just like, you get one and I'll get the other, and
mine was disgusting.
Yeah, so was mine.
Yeah, so it
wasn't mixed up very well. It was sort
you know
of
what movie's
layers.
good? You know what movie's really good?
What's that?
Have you seen the Lego Movie?
Yeah,
that's good, right?
It is a good movie.
Yeah,
yeah.
In the category of movies that are people think it's for kids, but it's actually like
and so
really smart and funny.
I think you're more right with like the Pixar and the Simpsons and all of those things that you mentioned than Star Wars. I feel like I didn't get something where I was like, I was missing this, or I see there's different levels to it. Like
right, you don't get the feeling that like Conan O'Brien wrote on it,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's subtle kind of genius. Yeah.
In regards to, we've been to a lot of Fool's Gold shows here in New York,
have, yeah.
which we're always excited to see because there's always a surprise. There's always like lots of guests, and obviously like the mainstays just kill it every year.
Cool. Thanks.
When a Juicy J comes out, when a French Montana comes out, as when the Locks come out, and it's like always that big sort of like headliner.
Yeah.
There's always a real excitement, and there's a lot of thought that's put into it. I feel like if Khaled was hitting like maybe like 6 months from now,
I call him Khaled. Go on.
I think
Respectfully.
I think he would be like the guy to show up there. And
I've been trying to get Khaled for years. So his guy is J1s, and I've been hitting J1s for like at least 2 or 3 years. Whenever we do a Fool's Gold event in Miami, which is once a year, I try to get Khaled to show up. He's always busy. I don't know if there's a weird thing with Khaled. He's at that sort of R. Kelly level where like, he's got to be aware that it's funny, and he plays along with the role that works. So I'm sure he's self-aware, but I don't know if he understands that there's like other things out there in the world. So like, because I think that Khaled could come to a Fool's Gold event and understand what we're about and be like, oh, cool. Because he knows he's obviously like into the DJ craft. So I'm sure he could come and be like, oh, here's some DJs doing interesting stuff, and some rappers that I know, but other musicians that I don't know, and somehow it's in this mixed pot that makes sense. I'm sure he could get it, but I don't know why he doesn't seem to be curious about the world outside of Khaled.
Right.
Yeah, no.
Khaled. Yeah, no.
Also, like, I don't think that he's too busy to come. Obviously, like, I've seen him
that's the
on
startling thing.
Because, like, if you watch his Snapchat,
thing.
like, you just see that he does the same thing every day and mostly just stays at home.
I'm very amused by the fact that he has an old school elevator in his house. He takes an elevator to go have breakfast.
And he has to open it and close it every single time with the manual.
He's got a service elevator.
Yeah.
To go to the kitchen, but then he goes to the treadmill.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know why he doesn't walk up the stairs. I'd like to see those stairs.
By the way, on Rick Ross's Snapchat, he also has an elevator in his home. There was one time where he was bragging about taking the stairs, but then he got tired and then decided to go back down the stairs and then take the elevator up.
Okay.
Yeah. So it might be like a thing where he's just like,
Yeah. I have whole fascination also just for that type of house. Like in the South, there's those houses that were probably built 6 years ago that when rap dudes get them, they think they're ballin'. But to me, it looks like a very cheaply made suburban kind of house. Like you feel like you would knock the door and the whole house falls over.
Yeah.
But they're like, yo, I got a piano. But like all the details, like the doorknobs and everything, are terrible. But it doesn't really matter in this house. But yeah, it's interesting. Like the Khaled explosion is interesting right now because to me, Snapchat as a business, they've been saying for over a year now that they want to take over TV. And to me, Khaled's the first reality TV star of Snapchat. Like, his success, which he's suffering from, on Snapchat makes me believe that Snapchat could be the new TV.
Yeah,
But I've seen you guys tweet a little bit that you're sort of over it, right?
Well, okay, so
Jeff especially.
I was very early on Khaled Chat, and I was very early on Ross Chat, and then 6 weeks of him going down the same pathway to success and watering the same plants, and saying "lie on" every single time, and it's like, all right, I've seen it, and then like at a certain point, it just becomes reruns. And so you're wondering why.
It's Groundhog Day.
Yeah, like why am I watching this when I could literally be doing anything else?
But your favorite thing was when they had the crossover episode.
Oh my god, yeah.
Oh
Like,
yeah. And you could watch from either perspective.
Yeah, and by the way, it came across so differently through Ross's Snapchat.
I just thought of that because you remember when there was the Simpsons episode with the critic as a guest.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Imagine if they did the same weekend or the same week a critic episode where the Simpsons guest, and you could watch from both sides.
That'd
be
amazing.
Genius.
Yeah.
That would be the equivalent of that. Snapchat's more powerful than animated studios, right?
Certainly.
See, these are the two levels you're talking about, not Star Wars. Star Wars is garbage.
Yeah. I dressed up as Khaled for Halloween.
I was wondering if
posted
you,
it on his
did he
Instagram.
ever reach out or?
No, I don't really have a dialogue with him. I speak to J1s.
Right.
Khaled doesn't seem to acknowledge me much, but he posted it on his Instagram, which I was really proud of. But he wasn't like, yo, my man A-Trak. He was just like, fan love. I'm like, cool, I'll be a fan. Sure,
because you had the Miami Heat jersey with another one on the back,
custom
right?
made.
Yeah.
That I'd like to, I'm glad you pointed that out because I remember when my friend and I had that made, we were like, yo, once he makes this for merch, he's going to make a killing. And I'm sure he's making a killing too.
Yeah, on all like his like slides.
WeTheBestStore.com.
Yeah. Similar to 2 Chainz with his Dab in Santa millionaire story.
And he made like $2 million or something.
Yeah, to charity.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Tawhid is a generous one.
No kidding.
Yes.
He's another one.
He's a lovely guy.
Well, and
what a lovely guy.
Yeah.
2 Chainz, what a lovely guy.
And also his manager Tech.
Yeah.
Wonderful guy.
I love the South and the whole South.
Well, have you been to Rick Ross's and formerly Evander Holyfield's mansion?
No, I don't really know Rose.
Because that's one of those homes that I feel like that's a lot of doorknobs to change out. Like, you have to change out the
it's like 40 rooms.
And the gate probably had like Evander written on it or something. Like, you have to change out everything to make it your own.
Yeah.
Another thing that Jeff has predicted, which is sort of unfortunate, but we'll see if it happens, is Cal's relationship with his wife.
Yeah. So Khaled's wife hates his Snapchat and has made that very well known because he keeps trying to tape her in bed or just like anywhere.
Yeah.
And I get the feeling that they're going to get a divorce, and I get the feeling that he's going to Snapchat that divorce.
But the fact that you never see her, it's like the grown-ups on Muppet Babies.
Sure. Yeah.
Shows like that.
Can we talk about you did live on the Upper West Side or more like uptown
for a year.
when you first moved down here, right?
Yeah.
What brought you up here?
I was kind of toying with the idea of moving to New York for a while, or at least splitting my time between Montreal and New York. And when Dave did his school exchange to go to France for a year, I started coming to New York to kind of stay in his place when he was away. But essentially, once I came to New York, I never went back to Montreal. So I started off on 122nd. And for that year, I had no reason to be in Morningside Heights because I wasn't going to school there. So everybody I knew was downtown or in Brooklyn. So I got tired of taking half-hour cab rides to do anything social. So a year after that, I moved to Williamsburg and I stayed there.
But do you have any memories of anything Upper West Side? Or
I love Uptown. I love Uptown. I just had a conversation today with Princess Nokia about how cool Uptown is. Anytime I see Venus, we talk about how cool Uptown is. Not to mention when I see, Cam and Duke and those guys, but like 125th is the embodiment of flavor. There's nothing cooler than 125th to me.
Although now it's getting like very not cool.
I guess I haven't been in a few years. Maybe it's changed a little bit.
Like there's an Applebee's there. There's a Buffalo Wild Wings.
There is a Wingstop there, so that's
right.
you know,
Yeah, you got to balance it. As long as
yeah.
I could buy, essential oils and incense.
Yeah,
yes,
sure.
It's still cool. I don't remember who, by the way, sidebar. You know, like when Ty Dolla was like, no one knew what he looked like for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Ty Dolla $ign, and he was just on those mustard records, so people thought that he was going to look like YG or something.
Right.
And then he made an appearance at some award show, and I forget who, but someone that we probably all follow tweeted, like, Ty Dolla $ign looks like a guy who sells oils on the subway. And I was like, this might be the funniest sort of diss that I've heard in a long time. He's great. He's very talented and a lovely guy. That's funny.
There's a few of those when like your old Droog or like guys who like don't show themselves for a while, the weekend, and then it's just like
or Jesus.
That sure. That mystery is pretty like exciting and doesn't really happen a lot anymore.
Yeah, well, when the weekend started off, I remember when there would be like vague pictures of like his shadow, like we think this is him, or like someone uncovered like footage of a talent show in Toronto, like that's him, that's Abel. It's interesting. He successfully turned his image thing around, where now he's like got the most iconic haircut, the most meme friendly haircut in the
I
game.
think he looks like Randall from Monsters Inc.
Yes, that's fair.
Wait, did you know any of these people before they got big, and you were just like, oh, like that's that kid?
As far as Canada connections,
I mean, sure.
Like when Drake blew up, it was an interesting process for me in terms of my relationship to Canada, because it was the first time that there was a new generation of hip hoppers. Like I had moved away from Canada long enough that I realized, like, whoa, there's new people doing dope hip hop that I don't know from Canada, because
the last person you knew was like Cardinal Official.
Yeah, sort of. So yeah, because for such a long time, it was the same usual suspects doing hip hop in Canada for years and years. Dave and I were kind of holding down Montreal, and we had Audio Research, our old record label, out of there, and we knew a lot of the guys making music from Toronto. We knew the guys from Halifax. We knew the guys from Vancouver.
Nobody in Calgary.
I knew a couple DJs in Calgary for sure. And Toronto in particular, for a long time, had this old guard that really had a stranglehold almost on, or at least a stronghold, I'll say it more kindly, on the record industry of almost all of Canada. Like, you know how Canada has these grants that you can get, like music. I don't know if you know, but like in Canada, as a musician, you can get a grant. There's a bunch of grants. It's amazing. It supports the arts a lot. So there's grants.
Hold on, we're Americans.
Okay.
We don't understand like people supporting arts.
Yeah, well, Canada is different, and you can get grants to fund the making of an album. You can get a grant to fund marketing and touring. You can get a grant for videos. It's really amazing.
Yo, I cannot wait until Bernie Sanders is our president and we turn into Canada.
And we can have subsidized record labels.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the country funds all these things. I mean, they're a little hard to get, but you can get them. And but there used to be this thing where, you know, the sort of judging panel for when you put in those grant applications was kind of held by a handful of Toronto music managers that would just grant them to the same people every year. And so if you were from Montreal or Vancouver, wherever, you just weren't getting those grants because you weren't in on the politics or whatever. And
I mean, to be fair, like all those other cities suck, right?
No, Toronto sucks. I'll openly shit on Toronto. I mean, Toronto's fine in the sense that it's just like Chicago or any other like big American city.
Where is Much Music based?
Toronto.
Okay, just making sure.
Montreal has Musique Plus. That was our version of Much Music. Same logo, but with a French name. But anyways, what I was getting at is just this idea that for so long, the Toronto hip-hop scene was controlled by just a handful of people. And
by the way, still is.
I don't know. Now it's different. Ram Riddles is different.
Yeah, Ram Riddles is different.
Then I moved to America, toured with Ye, did other stuff, started Fool's Gold. And then, you know, Drake came out with his early music, and I was like, this is kind of good. And So Far Gone came out, and I was like, whoa, this is cool. And there's actually a cool cover with, like, nice artwork. Who are these people with a nice blog and a good rapper from Canada that I don't know? And I remember trying to figure out, like, well, I got to know someone here. And I connected with Oliver in those days, and him being just a little older than Drake, he knew about audio research and me and Dave's early work, and he was like, yeah, I used to have Obscure Disorder, Vinyl. That's the old group that Dave and I used to have in Montreal. So that he was the guy that kind of knew kind of more the lineage, and we're still friends to this day. But that was interesting. I remember just having that reaction of like, whoa, have I been in the US that long that there's a rising hip hop star in Canada that I don't know?
Right.
For all of their wins and successes and smart aesthetic choices, it's always interesting to me that they've kept with October's very own .net. That's number one, and number two, that's a blogspot.
Yeah.
Like they never...
But I feel like the .net was for a long time a tasteful choice. You know, there was a couple. By the way, audioresearch.net. That was our website. There was a website too. There was a couple people.
A-Trak.com. Okay, all right.
Yeah, getting the big bucks. But for a while, I feel like .net was this almost hipster choice for a website.
That's true. If you had like a GeoCities domain, then you're really cool.
That's another thing. By the way, when one of the reasons I'll always respect Borat was that when Borat came out, he had the website that had like the counter on the bottom and the little flames and the brick background.
Very authentic.
Genius.
That was so good. And just if you're talking about like there are what's cool with Drake sometimes is the sort of paradox of like this guy makes the best music that everyone listens to, but and then fill in the blank, and then. My thing of choice is the experience shower. Do you guys remember the complex story, the experience shower?
Yeah, so he has a shower that changes colors.
Oh, right.
which was like detailed in the complex article once. And I remember just being like, that's so cool. Like, it's such a paradigm shift that a rapper will openly talk about his lavender experience shower. Like, we've officially turned a page.
It's very different from when we all grew up.
Yeah.
Do you think that Drake still gets those grants from Canada?
I mean,
I don't think he needs them.
Not him himself, but I know that some of the OVO stuff has backing, which is great.
Yeah.
I wish the government would back Fool's Gold Day Off.
You should move operations back to Montreal.
Yeah, it's tricky.
The idea of doing either Toronto or Montreal or some sort of Canada Fool's Gold Day Off has been discussed but hasn't been actualized.
Well, we did last June. We did an event in Montreal that we called Fool's Gold Homecoming, which was very similar to a day off, but because it was a different part of the year, we didn't want to confuse people too much. But that's a priority to me for sure. Building Fool's Gold in New York was something that required a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. In a sense, it required a lot of effort. Like it's not easy to make it in New York, kid. So I feel like for a couple of years we really worked on the foundation here to craft this sort of hub for the artistic community. And that took a lot of our time and attention span. And then there was a point where once that was solid enough, there started being more and more fans from Montreal being like, why don't you do this in Montreal? Don't forget your hometown. It's like, of course I haven't forgotten, but like we had to make this an official brand name that everybody knows and understands. Right. And now we can go back to Montreal and kind of replant that seed there, or connect back to what the groundwork we put before. But I definitely think that it required a couple of years of tending the lion, watering the plants in New York for a while.
Yeah, I don't want to compare it exactly to the lessons I've learned from Shark Tank, but you have to, start off with one home base, and then you can.
That's right, a brick and mortar, which you have.
We do have a brick and mortar.
Yeah, which is pretty exciting. Have you ever thought about an LA outpost?
Yes, thought about it for sure. And when we did Fool's Gold Day Off last August, we had a pop-up, which was part of 424. Shout out to 424, great shop on Fairfax. So, and that went really well. So I think we're gonna, gradually infest Los Angeles. And me living there makes it easier also to kind of.
You could just have it out of your house.
Yeah, exactly. Come to the Fool's Gold shop, take your shoes off.
We years ago we did a one of our sketches we did was with Max B, and we went over to his place which was it was supposed to be shot here, and the whole concept was we were playing Scrabble with Max B.
Yeah, I love that. That's great.
But Karen Silva, who organized the whole thing, was like, hey, instead of doing it at your place, would you mind coming up to Max's spot, which is in the Bronx on Sedgwick Avenue? And we're like, sure. So we run up there, and we get there, and there's zero furniture in the place besides one ottoman and one Pro Tools rig.
Right.
An ottoman.
Yeah.
And then there were like 7 or 6 dudes like on the wall, just like sitting on the floor, just like ice grilling us, not happy that we had brought a giant Scrabble board. Like, who are these 2 guys?
But their one condition...
Yeah, I got yelled at for not taking my shoes off.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
In this place, which was, you know...
Like, it was just like a very weird night.
You also got yelled at for answering the door without, like, properly looking through the eye hole, right?
Right. The people... Yeah. Well, but that's on me. Like, that's my
rookie
fault.
mistake.
Yeah. Don't let people into someone else's apartment.
2014 Fool's Gold Day Off. Might have been the great tour de force of surprise guests. During my set, I had Cameron,
Yes.
Remy Ma,
Yeah.
McConan, and I forget who else. There was someone else.
Dame Dash, but...
Bobby
Dame-
Shmurda.
Shmurda came out during Frenchie.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
During French Montana, and there was someone else too. But getting Remy Ma, who was fresh out of jail, literally like less than a month out of jail, getting her to come to the show was a little laborious, and I had to deal with Papoose, and that was really funny because basically Papoose negotiated for her like appearance, and we agreed on a set time, but and then some of our guests, when they get to the event, they take a little look, they're like, oh, this is cool, they come and hang out. Like Cameron was just hanging out backstage with everyone, but Remy Ma and Papoose stayed in the car in the little alleyway waiting for their time to play, and everything runs a little late at a rap show, so her appearance was a little later, and there's a point where Pap started calling me, and I was on stage throwing t-shirts or whatever the hell I do at a Fool's Gold event, and I run back to the alley, and I'm like, what's up? He's like, yo, she's on house arrest. She has to be home by 9. Like, what are you doing? We got to get her on stage right now because she's got the ankle bracelet.
Oh my god!
That was an interesting reality check, and we got her on.
That year, you had, I think, like full-bodied McConan.
Yes.
This year, he came back and he was just like
half of himself.
Yeah, he was like he's fit and.
It was funny that year, by the way, when you said full bodied, I thought you were about to refer to something else. Our security was Zulu Nation.
Yeah, the Zulu Nation.
Zulu Nation was security.
They were
incredible.
very, very about their job.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were actively enforcing security.
Yeah, they checked everything but like my cheeks for a razor blade. Like they were so on point.
Yeah. It was ill. But they were the main guy, when I was talking to him as we were setting up, and we started realizing. No, I think maybe halfway through the show when he realized that we weren't a bunch of schmucks, but this was like a legitimate operation, and there was a connection to hip hop and lineage and everything. He sort of took me aside. He's like, "Man, I didn't know this was going to be like my kind of show. This is cool, man. I'm Muhammad. Like we used to do Tribe Called Quest. I'm on a world tour with Muhammad, my man. I'm that Muhammad.
Whoa.
I'm like, this is so cool." And then Tip came to say what's up. Because I had texted him the day before when I was trying to get my guests. He was like, I'm not going to come on stage, but I'll come hang out and watch the show a little bit. And he showed up to grab me right away. He's like, you didn't tell me that you were going to have Zulu, like my security, doing your security. I was like, I didn't know until this morning, to be perfectly honest.
What's Q-Tip like as a person? Because we've only had one interaction with him, which was like... maybe
we like chased him down in Times Square. And
we
were like, hey, like...
Yeah. And there was like no...
Yeah, he was just like, okay, like I'm... Goodbye.
Yeah,
like,
goodbye.
stop bothering me. It's like 3 a.m.
But like amongst professionals, how is he as a human?
He's a great dude. I'm very fond of Q-Tip. I think he's there's definitely something a little mystifying or fascinating about him, because he's the type of guy that will step in and out of... I don't want to say the industry, but just like the circle or whatever. Like, there'll be years or even parts of a year where he'll do a residency. He would do a party with Vashti or with Ronson or whoever else, and then there'd be another 6 months where no one would see him. And I think it's probably for sanity reasons or whatever. But there's a side to Tip that you feel like he probably maybe he guards himself a little bit, but he's always been really open and cool with me. I've been to his house a couple times.
Did you have to take your shoes off?
I don't think I had to take my shoes off. Yeah, he's always been really sort of warm and welcoming to me. So yeah, it's just a dope dude, and I like people that have that sort of magic aura to them, where you're just like, I don't fully understand how you were placed on this earth because you can do things that other humans can't do, but can I just sit here and like we can talk about records? Like he's got that aura, But he's great, and actually it's interesting. In recent months, we've been in touch a bit more also because we both have shows on Beats One. So sometimes we'll just sort of like bounce ideas, or there's a time where he asked me to help him get a Danny Brown thing for his show.
Did you say no?
No, I obliged. Here's a little factoid. Q-Tip is part of the reason why I signed Danny Brown.
Really?
Yeah.
How did that come to be?
Danny, when, as much as people know him now as this sort of like alternative, weirdo rapper, this and that, Danny always had the rapping ass rappers in his court. Like the same way that Sean Price, rest in peace, was a huge Danny Brown fan right from the start. When I met Danny, he had the Hybrid mixtape out, and he was opening up for Das Racist. And Tip was one of the early people who really believed in him. So Nick and I had met Danny once, and we decided we were going to send him an offer, basically. And I just happened to be catching up with Q-Tip that day. I went to lunch with him or something, and we're just talking about ideas and projects and this and that. And he's like, "Oh, who you feeling?" And I remember saying, "I think I'm going to try to sign this guy, Danny Brown." And he was like, "Yo, he's the shit. Sign, like, do it. Get him. He's that dude." And I remember that just gave me that extra little confidence of like, all right, let me seal this deal.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How does Danny Brown end up staying with you instead of going to a major, whereas maybe Kid Cudi went a different route and was like, I want to go with Universal?
Yeah, I think part of that was just historical with the infrastructure of Fool's Gold growing over the years. We signed Cudi and released Day and Night at a time where, we had kind of grassroots distribution, and we were perfectly capable to get songs out to tastemakers and blow up a great single and make a great video for cheap dollars and this and that. But when Day and Night became the song that you heard on Hot 97 all the time with the Jim Jones freestyle,
Yes.
and this and that, and the Crookers remix was a legitimate top 10 European dance record and everything else, and him and his team started asking for, paying for radio pluggers for the rest of America for Day and Night and stuff like that. Like there was a bit of a gap between what we didn't even have that structure yet. And he went to Universal, I think because he just wanted to make that leap pretty quick. By the time we had Danny, we had more robust distribution, and we expanded on that even more. Like when we put out Triple X, it was still semi grassroots. And when we put out Old, we had 88 distribution, which is Warner. So, yeah, I think we caught Danny at a time when we were just capable to support an album more. Putting out an albums are antiquated, and putting out an album requires having access to part of the infrastructure of the record industry that's kind of antiquated. And you have to have these like product managers at
right.
some office or whatever.
So
at least a rap album.
Does it matter that if an artist comes to you today, or there's an interest, does it matter if they want to put out a full project, or if they're like, I'm more inclined to just put out stuff as fast as I can? We customize plans for each and every artist that we sign. There's certain artists, and it's a lot of times it's an open conversation. Even if you look at some of our recent signings, Leaf, Bosco, people like that. Like it would literally be like, do you want to start off with a free release? Cool. Maybe we do like a free album, then we do an EP, then we'll put an album up for sale, and then you just have to translate that into some sort of paperwork. But to break an alternative R&B singer isn't the same avenues as to break a hip hop artist where you
you want to get like DigiWax or whoever like promoting the single, and it's certainly not the same avenues as breaking, electronic artists who just put out singles and EPs. It's always been important to us at Fool's Gold to keep our structure really flexible and nimble. We're not exclusive to one distributor, but we have access to all those scales
and all different, air miles.
Yeah, exactly. You got it. That's the same mentality. It's like when you show up, you got to be able to pull that card. Oh, it's one world. I got it. Platinum exec. What up?
What is happening with Danny now? Like, what's different with him having new management? Paul Rosenberg and everybody at.
I mean, I think that too sort of came in at a time where he was growing, and it helped him have the structure that he probably needed. Goliath is a whole company. Paul's there when he's needed. When he has to make a call, everybody picks up his call. Dart Parker is Danny's more sort of active manager, and we deal with him all the time, and he's great too. I think one thing that's cool with Goliath also is like they've always been very self-contained. They don't they're from the world of major label rap, but they're not one of those companies that expects the big label to do the development or whatever. They're able to just do things themselves, and we're able to do things ourselves. So we've developed this relationship where Fool's Gold and Goliath can handle, pretty much everything that Danny wants to do, from his merch to publicity and everything else.
So you were talking about, your show at Beats One. You famously are not a fan of Beats headphones.
Yeah, that's been a bit of an issue.
Do they make you wear them?
No, but I don't. Here's the thing. My role at Beats One is kind of invisible. No one sees me anywhere. I don't record at the station. I record at home and I send in my show. I remember when I started the relationship with Beats One, and I almost forgot that was the same Beats as Beats. Like, I went to visit the studio once, and I saw a pair of Beats headphones, and I was about to crack a joke, and in my head I'm like, wait, this is Beats, isn't it Beats? Damn it, I can't make fun of these anymore. And I have to say, to be fair, that they've improved the headphones in terms of, to me, like, even just in terms of audio quality, because in the beginning,
this sounds like you're just riding the company line.
No, yeah. I still think that they look like a kitchen appliance, but they sound better than they used to, and it's fine. And the Beats bill is all right too. But I'm not gonna hold on to. The thing is, when you're a smartass, you have to grow with your smartass. You can't just make fun of the same thing forever, because then you just sound like an old grouch. I'm not grouchy. I'm a chipper, pretty happy guy.
Let's talk about a couple projects.
Projects.
Yes. Where's the Cameron one at? Where are we?
I mean, how do you want me to answer this?
Well, you've recorded a lot of material, certainly.
Yeah.
You released,
but we recorded a bunch of material all at once.
Yeah.
Like when Cam and I started working together, it was essentially me, him, and Dame linking up for a period of like maybe 2 months, and we made a bunch of songs. We had enough for almost an EP, and there was a point where we had to just finish some of those songs, and just those link ups started slowing down to a point to a complete halt. And but we put out Humphrey as soon as it was done.
Mm-hmm.
We put out Dipshits with a video,
which was the best.
Thanks. Yeah, I was really proud of that. And to me, that video, the objective was to set the mark for what the whole project should be like. Just to be like, everybody loves and misses Dipset. If I'm going to get involved with this, there needs to be a standard of quality. We're going to make some, excellent, beautiful product for this. Here's a beautiful video. And then things slow down a little bit with the finishing of songs. And it kind of is what it is. It could still happen, but, my take on it is Cam and I are still great. Love the guy. Really love the guy. And insanely talented. I think part of what makes Dipset and Cameron have such a mystique is the fact that they're completely unpredictable. So our recording has been on a very odd timeline, and it kind of is what it is. Maybe one day maybe in the foreseeable future, he and I will link up and just finish those last couple joints, and we'll put out the project. But my thing is, I refuse to put out a project that's not at the level of at the standard I want it to be at.
Right.
Because that defeats the whole purpose of Federal Reserve. So we recorded a few things. I'm really proud of the songs we made. There's some that aren't out that are great that I'm just holding on to closely because to me they only belong on a finished project when it's done.
So you're not going to go guest on Q-Tip's Beats show and do a Just Blaze set?
Yeah, exactly, right? That's the Just Blaze special. It depends how the future plays out. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So that's that. Cam's great though, dude. The guy cooked for me. Like, he's so cool.
What did he make?
He made some lamb chops. He made some shrimp. Because we would go to his house.
And he has a strip club in the basement.
The Boom Boom Room.
Yeah.
He does.
He invited us over there the first time we met him.
Which by the way, like, two totally different things. But when we were doing, in terms of, like, your thing was way different than ours. But where we connect is that when we were doing a sketch, Joey IE wanted to have us, and this is during the Asylum days, Joey IE was like, if you don't come to the office in the next 30 minutes, you're never going to see Cam again. He's going to jump on a plane, and that's the last you'll see of him. And we're like, all right. And we went down there, and we shot our video, and it turned out great.
Yeah.
And then, even now, like, if we hit up Cam, and we'll see him, and he's like, you have my new number? We're like, yeah. So we connect and hit us back right away, and then you try to hit him again, and you'll never hear, and then...
Yeah, either you have that window or you don't.
Yeah.
There's like a romanticism to that, I think. It's interesting because the fact that he's on social networks makes it seem that he's
accessible. Right.
And but he still has that more old school musician, like pre-social media musician approach of like, you might not see this guy for 6 months. And I really respect that.
By the way, there's two things. Okay, so one of the last times that we talked to Cam, he hit up Eric. Okay. He texted him. Yeah. And he goes, yo, I want to get Jeff in my movie.
It's like, cool.
Like, I'm going to call you in like
half an hour.
And then never called. And then when we tried to like hit him back, and by the way, like, Eric is my agent or something.
Yeah.
I want to get Jeff in. And then the other thing is, the weirdest place that I've seen Cam, I saw him at two places actually. I saw him once during Fashion Week.
With the cape?
This was pre-Cape.
Okay, pre-Cape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This was back in like 2010, I think. I saw him at 4 a.m. at a Fashion Week show that was supposed to start at 11 p.m. So I waited for 5 hours to see Cam. He finally came out, and there were like maybe like 20 people still there, to be generous. And then he like hung out with us afterwards, and that was great. And then the other thing is I saw him at a 9/11 anniversary show down by the World Trade Center. The former World Trade Center, and it was all like bros, like it was a private party, and like leather-bound books were all over the walls. It was 9/11, 2011.
Oh,
it was I wrote it up for the Village Voice. It was the weirdest show.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I always thought that was interesting how Joel's used to rap about 9/11 too.
Yeah.
I have a little anecdote. I have two good Cameron anecdotes that I think it's the real worthy.
Yeah.
One. He and I did the Terminal 5 show together a year and a half ago, right when the project was, or when Dipshits came out. And at soundcheck, he shows up with his DJ, and his DJ's got the instant replay, which, I think most of your listeners will probably know. The instant replay is that bulky machine that for a long time rappers used to have their instrumentals on. But Cam and I had talked a little bit about me kind of DJing for him, or at least his set being seamlessly woven into my set. So I had a little conversation with his DJ, and I was like, can we work it out in a way that like I can, like, maybe you and I together can play his backing tracks, but like can we not use the instant replay, because I don't want to have this thing up on stage the whole night. And his DJ's like, I'm down, but I don't even have these files that are in this machine, because the instant replay is like an old school machine that you literally record into. You can't plug it to something and drag a file. So I still had like an hour to go in my sound check. So I was like, this is fine. If I record out, if I take these instrumentals in your replay and record them into my computer, can we play them off my Serato? And his eyes lit up, and he's like, you can get the music out of this thing? And I had my sound guy dump all the instrumentals.
Oh, my God.
And his DJ was so giddy, because he was like, does this mean you can give me the files, the waves for the show tracks, and I don't have to carry this thing anymore? I was like, yeah, dude. I'll do that for you, of course. And so I gave his own DJ his own show tracks, and he was so excited.
And gave him a second shot at life.
That's right.
Yeah, he was so happy that I gave him his own show tracks. That's one story. Another story. You remember when Cam wanted to fight? What's that boxer's name? B-Hop?
Oh yeah, Bernard Hopkins.
Yeah. So that was during those couple weeks when Dame and I were linking up with Cam a lot to work on the project. So Dame calls me. He's like, "Yo, we're gonna see Cam today." Cool. And he goes, "You'll never believe this, but Cam wants to box Bernard Hopkins." I'm like, "I don't know who that is." He goes, "Oh, he's a very famous boxer." I'm like, "Okay, cool. What does that entail?" He's like, "Well, we gotta meet Cam at a boxing gym." And from there we'll go to his house. So we meet Dame and I meet Cam at a boxing gym, and Dame really knows how to box. So already it's entertaining to see him do that little thing with the
the bag,
doing those little
punching bag,
those circular
bag,
punches, on the speed bag.
You can tell that we're boxers, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. And then we're kind of talking, or he's talking to Cam, and just on some like, "Are you serious?" And Cam's like, "Yo, if we do this on pay-per-view, it's gonna get $2 million." And after a while, we're like, "Okay, let's go back to Jersey." So we hop in Cam's Bentley, and so it's Cam driving. His engineer is riding shotgun, and in the back seat is myself, Dame's assistant, and Dame. And Dame at the time was entangled in a lawsuit situation where he was trying to get Rachel Roy's company back from whoever those licensees were. Someone bought the license to the brand and they were messing it up, and he was still involved with that lawsuit. So I get to witness during a 45-minute drive out to Jersey, I get to witness Damon Dash on a conference call with a bunch of lawyers trying to win back a company. And he's getting heated. He's sort of like, "You can't talk to me, blah, blah, blah." And his assistant's like, Damon, calm down. And at one point, so the funny thing is hearing Damon speak lawyer talk, because he's well-versed in it. And by the way, so is Cam. Like, when we were all figuring out the business agreement that would go with Federal Reserve, Cam would sometimes call me and just be like, "I think we could do the license, but I got to talk to my attorney because I got an exclusivity clause with..." And he was talking the talk. And I was like, "All right, Cam, yeah, let me know if you have an exclusivity clause." Like, you can tell this is someone who got probably fucked with his early contracts, and had to learn the business on some street shit, understanding dealings, and now he can talk the talk, and he knows what's a good deal and what's not. But Dame's on another level of talking the talk in terms of talking to lawyers. And at one point, Dame is like, "No, you guys have a fiduciary obligation to da-da-da-da-da." And then I see Cam in the front turn to his boy, his engineer, who's shotgun. He turns his head and he goes, "Fiduciary?" Like, he mouths the word. That word interests him.
Oh my god.
So, but Cam's patient. We know Cam's patient. Yeah. So he waits till the end of the call, and Dame is talking, blah, 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 yelling. Ends the call. Whew. And there's this awkward silence. First of all, we ends the call. You know what it's like when you're in the car and someone's having a shouting match. And so there's a little silence, and then Cam goes, "Yo, Dame, what do fiduciary mean?" And then Dame tries to explain what fiduciary means, but Dame understands how to use it, but he might not be able to give the definition. So then I'm chiming in, and I'm just saying, like, I think it's a trust thing in the business. Like, you're supposed to give your best efforts in a partnership, da-da-da. And so Dame and I are trying to, pass the ball to each other and figure out how to explain this concept to Cam, and he's sort of like nodding his head, like, "Okay, cool."
Did fiduciary make it into any of the lyrics?
No, but we thought, like, that was the joke that day. He's like, I'm gonna have to put that in the rap.
Okay, so when you go, you have some gigs coming up. You said in Phoenix and Vegas.
Yeah.
When you go to Vegas, are you playing a show that's more like what we saw at Terminal 5, which
when
is
I go to Vegas, you said?
Was that yeah?
Yeah. No. So the answer to your question is no. When I go to Vegas, it's a different game. I have a residency there, which is a long-term contract with the club. Right now I'm with the Win. Actually, just recently signed with them.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
All we do is
win, no matter
Another
what.
one.
Yeah. Khaleds. And I play at the same club over the period of a year or so, and those clubs are different from. I mean, Terminal 5 is a concert venue.
Right.
We bring in staging and lights. On any other night, you could see a rock band or something, you know? A Vegas nightclub is a Vegas nightclub every night.
Yeah.
It's built as a club. When I play at Terminal 5, everyone who's there bought a ticket to the night show, to the A-Trak show.
Right, yeah.
Right? So I'm playing to my audience. When I play in Vegas, I would say a third to a half of the people, I'd say,
Don't know who you are?
no, they come to, because it's specifically me playing that night. At least half of the people at Excess or Surrender, or whichever those clubs I play at, are just there because it's Vegas, and they're like, we're gonna go out, we're gonna go to the win. And it's the people that you see walking in the lobby, the girls that are wearing heels for the only night of the year, and their ankle is wobbly, and that whole thing.
A lot of bridal parties and
Yeah,
bachelor parties.
It's a different audience.
Oxygen masks. Have you ever been in the oxygen bars?
I haven't, actually. I'm curious about that.
They have, apparently, like, in Vegas now, they have, like, you can get, like, IVs if you're tired at the end of the night.
Yeah.
They just, like, plug you in.
That's
and
a whole thing.
Recharge you.
Yeah, that's a whole thing. I did the IV thing when I came back from a Europe tour. I got to LA and I was feeling exhausted, and I tried some sort of IV. They put electrolytes in your bloodstream.
Yeah.
It was very uncomfortable to have something plugged into your veins for, like, it takes a half an hour for that liquid to get in there. And it's uncomfortable, literally. You feel shit going in your vein. It's a sensation that my body didn't know, to, like, put something into my vein. The whole time I was like, get out of there. But you can't, because you got to wait for the whole thing to drip through. And you're just like...
Well, how'd you feel after that half hour?
I was really loopy for, like, a little while at first. I was, like... lightheaded for about a half hour, and after that I was just sort of annoyed with the whole thing.
Are you more inclined to play certain songs at Vegas than you wouldn't be elsewhere?
Yes, but the whole science of that, I used to have conversations with AM about that a lot when he was alive. Like, the whole science of playing in a, let's say, a cheesy place is it's dosage. It's a whole game of give and take with your audience. As a DJ, I'm not going to be overly stubborn and play the same set. The whole art of DJing is to adapt your set to where you are. So if I'm in Vegas, I will play ball a bit, and I'll play a couple songs that are just a bit more, I guess,
Wide-reaching.
Yeah, like dance mainstream than I would if I'm playing some cool house club in Chicago. But it's all about how you weave them into your set. And for me, every one of those that I give the crowd, it's like giving a doggy treat. It's like, oh, you got your little treat? Cool. The next two records are going to be things that you don't realize, that you've never heard and you don't think you want to hear. A big part of being a DJ is having this sort of implicit dialogue with your audience where they think they know what they want to hear, but they don't really know. But you don't want to be too much of an ass and not give them some of it. So you give them a little bit of what they know, and then they're barking like a little dog. And then you're like, cool, now let me pull a fast one on you and play you some weird shit that trust me, this is good. And then you play those songs, and they're like, oh, that's so cool, no one plays this. And then you don't want to go too far with that. You give them another little treat, and they're happy. And it's that whole give and take.
DJ Offbeat, I feel like, had the same philosophy.
I was thrilled when we saw you at Terminal 5 that you worked down in the DM in there. Which,
Ooh.
The greatest.
Yeah.
I'm
so happy for Yo Gotti.
Love Yo
Yeah.
Gotti.
Yeah.
We had him up here, the nicest person, like, in the world.
Yeah.
And he's been working a long time to get a #1 hit, and this is it.
It's great.
It's so good.
Snapchat me that blank,
Yeah.
if it's cool.
Yeah.
I do like the conditional if it's cool.
Yeah,
Like,
respectfully.
yeah.
Respectfully, Snapchat me your privates.
And by the way, he gives them an option. You can FaceTime me that pussy.
That's
Yeah,
right,
if
yeah.
Yeah.
Consensual.
Would you play something like, do you have a guilty pleasure song that you work into your set right now?
I mean, that's still one of them for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, the guilty pleasure thing varies. Sometimes, some of the guilty pleasures will be like almost ringtone kind of songs. Like, it's fun to play a flick of the wrist or whip nene kind of song if you flip it a certain way. But another part of the guilty pleasure is playing the weirdo cool southern songs, like a Kodak Black kind of song or like a Made in Tokyo kind of song that that only a fraction of your audience knows, but those who know are so psyched. Like for a long time, there would be Pee Wee Longway songs that I would play.
Right.
You know, where I'd be like, I'm going to play this, and there's going to be a couple people that are going to be so psyched that I play it, and those that don't know it, they'll just, you know, nod their head to the 808. They'll still enjoy it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's part of the joy of being a DJ too. Just to, because it feels like you pulled a fast one on people sometimes. Sneaking and Geeking by Pee Wee Longway is a personal favorite, and I would play that, and I always turn over to my friend and be like, playing Sneaking and Geeking in front of like 2,000, you know.
Yeah,
I like 3 different drugs.
Yes.
Molly, gasoline.
Yes.
My guilty pleasure song.
I mean, I like those drugs. What were you saying?
Yeah. My guilty pleasure song of the moment, as Jeff will attest, because I play it quite frequently right now, is Zero by Chris Brown.
It's a disco song.
It's a disco song. It's well written. Whoever wrote it well, and it's just fun.
Yeah,
and
it's good.
Just,
Eric's been playing it on repeat.
Yeah, listen, I'm just like
playing some CB.
Yeah. And meanwhile, I'm playing Rowdy Rebel's new mixtape, which is awesome.
I haven't listened yet, but I'm excited about that.
It's very good. Yeah. I feel like New York for me is having a moment, or at least I'm like really liking New York rap right now.
Yeah.
Like ASAP 12, he put out his song last year, Being Broke, which I really liked.
Yeah. Dope.
Yeah.
And then there's also like the Dave East kind of guys that are doing like just good hip hop.
Sure.
That's dope.
Talking about other Fool's Gold projects, when is the Just Blaze project going to happen?
Ask Just Blaze. It's on him.
We do ask Just Blaze.
Yeah. Just Blaze works. It's no wonder that Just Blaze and Cam made some great records together. They each work on their own clock. Shout out to Just Blaze.
Yeah.
Friend of Fool's Gold, it's the real.
Totally. When we were at his place after Star Wars, we're like, you know what? We never asked you, because we asked him about like what random rapper would be super into like things like this, and he's like, well, Eminem's huge into comics. He's like, Rick Ross has
like a whole room full of like toys and Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, and we never asked him about Kanye, and he's like, you know what? All the conversations, all the time we spent together, never had a conversation about it, but I figure he would. Do you know if he would be into that? Like,
into what specifically?
Into Star Wars.
Oh, it's hard to tell. Kanye has really bad taste in movies, in my opinion. We just disagree on movies, but.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
He has not seen the Lego movie?
Who knows? It's weird. The movies that he likes, I'm always like, why do you like this? He loved 300. He likes movies with like strong aesthetics, but sometimes those movies just don't work aside from having a strong aesthetic.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he likes Star Wars. I couldn't tell you.
So when you all traveled together, like GLC was your guy, like you.
GLC wasn't on all the tours, but he was part of the traveling party for a good 2 years, and he and I became good buddies.
Was that similar taste in movies? Was it just similar taste in humor?
Humor / this funny kind of friendship that comes from. Two people that might look at each other and be like, I wouldn't have expected it, but I get you and you get me, kind of things. Do you remember when Alchemist and Big Twin were doing a project together?
Yes.
Yeah. So that I remember, like, when that came out around the same time, and I remember thinking, like, that's probably the same kind of friendship. Like, they had a whole song where Alchemist was like, I grew up in the lap of luxury, and Twin said some other shit about how he didn't grow up in the lap of luxury. I didn't grow up in the lap of luxury, for the record, but yeah, this sort of like. You get me kind of thing.
Well, I do want to ask this one last question, which is, so, what is it like to... Everybody asks you, what is Kanye's album, going to sound like? And I'm sure you're tired of that, and I personally don't think that you could give it justice, even if you did have...
And at this point, I'm not even sure, because it's been... Yeah, I'm not sure where he's at with it.
But my question is, what is it like to hear an album? Like, is he open to... criticism?
Very.
He's very open to criticism.
Yeah, very. And that's part of what made us have an actual close friendship for a long time, was that both of us were always very frank with each other. He used to have an expression when I was working with him. He would say that something is A-Trak approved. Because a lot of people around him would just say, that's great, to everything he did. And when I would say, I think you could re-record that verse, or something, he would do it. And then when I would hear something and be like, yo, this is crazy, because I was a huge fan of his the whole time, but I would just hold him to a certain standard. So he was always happy when I give the thumbs up, So when he's working on music, definitely he'll. And the thing that's cool is he's democratic with his surveys about it. Like he'll play his music to, the friend of a friend that's just sitting on the couch and be like, "What do you think?" So it's not. He doesn't only ask me and Q-Tip. He'll ask just he
Seth Rogen.
Yeah. No, he's open to critique for sure. And it's always interesting witnessing the making of those albums because every Kanye album has a departure or some sort. It has like the sound of that album, right? So there's always the phase of him trying a bunch of stuff, and then you see when it starts congealing, and then he finishes it up. Yeah.
Right on. Well, we really appreciate you coming back to the Upper West Side.
Uptown.
Also, the next time that we do this, we hope we can get you and your brother here.
Yeah.
Or we can get you and Khaled together, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, get me and Khaled. Uptown, baby. Essential oils.
Yeah.
Officially, there's like 2 main bagel shops that are really respected, accredited. People do like a pilgrimage to get bagels there.
It is,
and they're 1 block away from each other. Saint Viateur Bagels and Fairmount Bagels. The 2 founders were originally partners, and they had a feud. They split. They essentially make the same bagel. I can't really taste the difference.
Yeah.
It's literally 5 blocks from where my parents and from where I grew up with my parents, and it's a different kind of brick oven. The bagels are lighter. They're boiled in a sort of sweet water first, and then they're put in the oven. And there's something about the water and that whole process that makes them a lot lighter. There actually is a hole in the center of the bagel, whereas the New York bagel, I believe, has more of a belly button situation. You can see through the Montreal.
Are you also like the guy who likes Tim Hortons and doesn't fuck with Dunkin' Donuts?
Nah.
Okay, so it's not
Tim
like...
Hortons isn't that good.
Also,
it's
for the
cool
record,
to say it's good, but it's not that good.
Wouldn't you say that you're more of a New Yorker now at this point?
Well, now you live in L.A.
Well, no, but certainly more than
Yeah.
L.A. Like I feel like you're such a part of the city.
I appreciate that. I mean, it's both. I lived in Montreal. Sorry, till I was 24.
Officially.
Yeah.
Do you have your driver's license?
Yeah. Yes. And then I moved to New York. I lived 8 years in New York, so I lived longer in Montreal. I got my driver's license when I was like 16 in Montreal. Had it for a long time. I never actually owned a car until I moved to LA a year ago. Really didn't drive much until I went to LA.
I guess you have to have a car in LA, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're
I mean, I
Ubering
feel like I
everywhere.
would Uber everywhere.
Uber everywhere.
Yeah.
Do you use Uber a lot out in LA?
A bit, but I mean, the first month that I lived there, I really did Uber everywhere, and then I realized it was a little ridiculous, and then I got a car.
Was that just because you were going to like Malibu?
Yeah,
those,
that's
like,
the thing is,
45-minute.
A little,
treks.
like, sort of, like, as a, just... I'm in LA mainly to record, so I'm bouncing around.
I go to
studio
LA to
sessions.
network, I'm just there to pass
make
out
it.
business cards. Yeah.
But I'm bouncing.
Headshots.
Yeah, I'm bouncing around studios that are in different parts of town, so it got a little crazy.
We had Sycamore on the podcast.
Oh, cool.
And
Sick.
Yeah. And he said that, and he's, New York born and bred, but has lived out in LA for a while.
Yes.
And he said that LA has become really a place where starving artists can live and make a career for themselves. And in New York, you can't anymore because it's become a billionaire city. So people have been priced out, and he feels like
I had a peripheral influence in the sense that, so in those years of the Kanye tours, I'm talking about like 2005 and 6 or so, I was working with GLC a lot, kind of producing his project, and obviously working with Kanye closely. Mainly, but GL and I used to listen to a lot of 3-6, and when that album came out, Stay Fly was such an anthem, and that made that whole album, The Most Known Unknowns, an anthem. That was, that album just sort of solidified their legendary status in a sense.
Yeah.
And so, I think Kanye really was genuinely a fan of 3-6 for a long time, but maybe the fact that a couple of us were listening to that record so actively around him, when they asked Ye to jump on the remix, that made it even more like, oh yeah, I have a mental picture of the studio where that verse was recorded. We were either in Australia or New Zealand, and Ye had to find a studio to do his verse, and it was a pretty lo-fi studio. I remember that their Pro Tools was still running on a computer that had OS 9. I hadn't seen OS 9 in a long time. It was a really old version of Pro Tools on OS 9, and I was like, "Yo, this is trippy. Like, this is really weird."
Trippy because of Juicy J.
Everything's trippy. Right. I probably still have the Trippy app on my phone. Let me check. Hold up. I might have
Wait,
some
what is
sound
the
effects.
Trippy app?
I'll show you right now. We trippy, man.
Real quick, Jeff, you should mention why we have bagels here.
Oh, because we're Jewish. Yeah. No, because we had Dave on the podcast, your brother, and he mentioned how he does not fuck with New York bagels.
Yes.
And we were like, because, he lived on the Upper West Side when he went to Columbia and all
did.
that. And we
I
were like,
actually lived there too.
Yeah.
Did I delete the Trippy app? That's
Wow, big mistake.
blasphemy.
Yeah.
It was this soundbite app where you could just go, Scrippers! Like, play me some Pimpin' Man. It was fun.
Your brother doesn't like New York bagels. These are from Absolute Bagels, which are on like 107th.
Yeah,
that,
not
yeah.
only doesn't, I mean, he and I can, I'll have his back on this one. We don't acknowledge nor respect New Yorker bagels.
Wow.
I
It
mean,
was
I acknowledge
really
it as
good
a
seeing
thing
you.
that makes me really bloated. I can't.
You're saying that in front of the bagels.
Yeah. And what? Yeah. The Montreal versus New York bagel rivalry is a much fabled and very true rivalry.
Well, listen,
Wait, so what's the difference? It's that you guys use like honey or something in them?
Okay, so there's a few things from what I understand. And the funny thing is in Montreal, there's really just...
Yo, what up? It's Eric, a.k.a. CDEFGABC, a.k.a. Major Key.
Yo, what up? It's Jeff, a.k.a. Morphine Power Ranger, a.k.a. Methadone Data.
Was this rehearsed?
No, we just do this.
Okay. Hi.
You gotta say who you are.
Oh, hi. A-Trak. What's
Yeah,
up?
this is a waste of time with It's the Real.
That too.
Yeah. What's happening?
Hey.
How's it going?
Going good. Going grand. Going great.
Good. How's
Stupendous.
business?
Stupendous. Stupendous. Everything's tremendous.
Oh, Jeff, how's business?
Booming.
Booming.
Boom.
Wait, there
That
was
kid's a millionaire, I think.
He is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's obviously booming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, but there was a snap the other day where Ben was asked, like, how's business? And he
Yeah.
goes booming. And then Khaled turns and goes, yo, Chris, there's another guy. He goes,
Yeah.
yo, Chris, how's business? He also says booming.
Yeah.
And Ben goes, dude, come on.
Make up your own.
Yeah.
Jeff was really concerned actually when and we're talking about Benjamin Kicks, who is Khaled's shoe dealer. During like Christmas break, he took that bus trip from Miami
To Vegas.
Yes. And Jeff was concerned. It was like, well, it is Christmas break, so it's all right. Now I feel like it's school year again, and he's hanging with him in L.A.
Is he playing hooky?
Yeah.
I think so.
I don't think that Ben has parents. I think he's like a little scamp who just like, he's like an orphan child.
Maybe he's a Milanakis kind of guy, and he's actually 42.
Oh, whoa.
Maybe.
I really never put that together, but that might be the case.
Maybe.
I'm going to start writing some fan fiction about that.
Let's see. We've known A-Trak for a while.
Yes.
I've known you for even longer than Jeff has, because I met you back in 2005.
Kanye days, right?
The Kanye days.
John Monopoly Connect.
That whole thing.
I mean, should we explain who Kanye is? Kanye
Yeah, sure.
West?
Yeah, there was that whole week there where, I mean, I got to know Don C and John Monopoly, and there were times when John would like change jobs like without telling anybody.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Kanye's original management team. Well, actually, around the first album, he had like 3 management teams. But the Chicago core of it was a crew called Hustle, which was mainly John Monopoly and Don C. Don C's still around. People know him as just Don. When I met him, he was really my point person for all my work with Kanye. He was essentially tour manager.
He was also your predecessor behind the wheels.
DJ Offbeat
That's
was
right,
his DJ
yeah.
name. John Monopoly was a Chicago, more sort of club promoter figure. And so, yeah, you guys...
More certified as It's the Real.
It's the Real.
And then we finally had you on an old podcast called Hype Men.
Yeah, which was also here, right?
Which is also
Yes.
here.
I
Yeah.
remember this living room.
And then we've since had your brother on.
Yeah.
On A Waste of Time.
Yeah, recently, right?
Recently.
Yeah,
and,
you've had Nick a bunch of times, I think.
And Nick
Yeah.
a bunch of times, sure.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's about time you come back.
I'm here.
And yeah.
I'm here to reclaim.
Now,
the
when
drum.
we had your brother on,
Yeah.
he told us a few amazing things.
Yeah.
One of which was his phone number back at home. Do you remember what it was?
In Montreal?
In Montreal.
Oh, wait. He had 576 days. Yeah.
A custom phone number,
Yeah.
like Sir Mix-a-Lot.
Yeah. Yeah. He did.
Did
I
you
forgot that? That's cool. I have a good memory for numbers, but you had to prompt me. I do remember that. Yeah.
Would you ever did you ever think of having one of your own?
No, I'm more I just like numbers that have a good sort of ring to them, no pun intended. Like that sound cool or that look like a cool sequence. It didn't have to be a word.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was funny.
I hope there's some
somebody whose name is not Dave now has it.
Yeah.
that people can call.
Yeah, I wonder if there's when Kramer has the phone number that's almost movie phone.
Yeah,
Why don't you tell me which Dave you're trying to call?
So if anyone wants to look for Dave, it's 514-576-DAVE.
That was him. In Montreal.
The other really cool thing that he told us that we had no idea was that you were friendly with Juicy J going back to the Kanye days.
Yeah, definitely. I think I posted a Throwback Thursdays photo of that recently. Yeah, I met Juicy J at the Mix Show Power Summit when I went there with Ye. And we stayed friendly for a long time. Juicy J is one of those guys, kind of like Bun B, he'll remember a face for years.
Yeah.
You might not see him for 3-4 years. And I remember I saw him at an airport way after I stopped working with Ye. And he's like, "What's up, A-Trak?" What's up, Juicy J? And I was already a fan of his. Actually, we were there with John Monopoly at the Mix Show Power Summit. And I used to amuse Manop by knowing Sipping on Some Scissor by heart. He would have me, with my French-Canadian accent, recite Sipping on Some Scissor. So when we saw Juicy J, he's like, "I want you to meet my friend A-Trak." I was like, "Please don't make me rap. Please don't make me rap. Not in front of Juicy J."
Did you...
You know that we're going to make you rap it now.
That's right.
No, you don't want that.
Did you have anything to do with the Side to Side remix, or were you there for that?
I was there. I remember it. Yeah, I really remember that. We're doing some video work.
Well,
I think,
well, just Eric.
Yeah, me.
Okay.
He I graduated college and thought I was going to be a feature film writer and director, and life is not a straight path,
Yes.
And I knew of Kanye and knew that he had other sort of ventures, including Hustle Film, that he was involved with.
Right.
And so I was like, well, let me get in where I fit in, and I love hip hop, I love film. Let me try to be a part of this world.
Yeah.
And they showed a lot of interest, and it got to the point where they talked about documentaries about John Monopoly's family, because they were in the Johnson body.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, products,
right?
Yeah.
Right.
And,
His name is Johnson.
Yeah. And,
John Johnson.
And so they wanted me to do documentaries for that and this and write scripts and do other things. And at a certain point, John would switch jobs. He'd be at Violator. He'd be at one of the record companies, which I forget, where he signed Dirtbag to.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I remember that he was at Violator before, because I would just ask him questions about. I'd just be like, "Hey, talk to me about Mobb Deep. Tell me a Havoc story."
And then one day it was just well, his email's bouncing back, and so I was just let me track him down somehow, and I did. Yeah. And then he's like, "Oh," and he hit me on text and is like, "I'm staying at the W Hotel," and I was like, "Cool, I'll be there." And then I'm like, "Wait, which W Hotel?"
There's 3. Yeah.
And so I showed up and I saw Consequence downstairs, and I was like, "Yo," because I had met him originally down in Asbury Park at some show.
Right, and he conned you into buying
two mixtapes. Yeah. He was like, "I'll introduce you to Don C if you buy 2 of my mixtapes."
For the measly sum.
Yeah. Which
I will gladly pay Tuesday for a hamburger today.
Take him to the cleaners.
He took you to the cleaners.
I know.
Yeah.
And I have that. And so, anyway, so I saw him downstairs, and then he's like, "All right, come on upstairs to whatever suite there was." And up there were GLC,
Leonard.
you, yep,
Yeah, I was there.
And Consequence, and John Monopoly was sitting on the bed or whatever.
Cool.
And I came in and caught up or whatever, and he was like, "This is A-Trak." And I thought he said 8-track, and
not an uncommon
sure
mix-up.
And then later on, when they hired me to document Kanye behind the scenes during that whole Grammy run, which was at the start of it was the label launch party for Good Music here in New York, and their rehearsals and everything with some John Legend stuff.
Yeah.
And then the whole week in LA, I reconnected with you, and you were just like, "Hey, what's going on?" And then, we sort of saw each other in LA a little bit, and then we didn't, Jeff didn't know you, but I didn't see you until much later on when we were